Welcome everyone who's joining us. I'm here. I'm going to hit record. Welcome Siobhan. Welcome anybody. I'm here to chat with the feedback. It happens every time. I'm here to chat to Siobhan Daly, who is one of our presenters. We're going to have a panel discussion with Siobhan on Sunday at our Alternatives to ABA conference. And I suppose today we want to talk about the importance of this conference and, why we need that. And I suppose, do schools even realise this event is happening? Do they even realise why they need to attend? All of that. So let's start there, Siobhan. Why do we need the conference? If we have teachers, SNAs, principals, SENCOs, anybody listening, parents who want to tell their schools about it, why do we need this conference? Is it just the same as another autism conference? People went to an autism conference last week or 2 months ago. They think they're done. I suppose, why is this conference so important for schools?
Huge question, really, isn't it? But yeah, I suppose, I'm looking at why I'm getting involved in this, and from a school point of view and a teacher point of view and education point of view, I think we're at a point where we have a duty to change what we're doing in schools, and we are at a point where it's not working for our autistic children, and they're suffering. It's really, really difficult for an awful lot of children, autistic children, to be in our system. So much so that a lot of children can't even make it into the building in the schools, and we know that and we see that. And autistic children are telling us that, and they may not be using words and a lot of is to do with behavior, and so a lot of it is, we can see it from the behavior of autistic children that it's not working for them. So I think quite often when we talk about ABA and we have this big title and we talk about therapy and we think, oh, it's big in America and it's 40 weeks and it's something a lot of people do outside of schools, and I'm not sure that we're aware of how much of maybe ABA and ABA like practices have slipped, not even slipped into, but are in our school system. And I'm not sure that a lot of teachers and SNAs and staff would be aware of the type of practices that are happening in the schools, and that those practices are harmful and dangerous to our children. And so if staff go looking and maybe start saying, okay, I'm hearing a lot about what's happening in schools with autistic children, and I go looking, there's a very good chance that they'll come across training courses that will promote compliance-based approaches and trying to change our autistic children and make them neurotypical. And the really, really sad and devastating part of this is that it's all based around not accepting the autistic person as an autistic person. And that a lot of the courses, and a lot of these are courses, NCSE and CPD courses and EPV courses in the summer that staff are going to. And so they're thinking, I just go back now and I put these practices into place and ensure everything will improve for these children. But they're really damaging practices that are really very clearly telling our children who you are and how you present yourself and how you behave and et cetera, is just not acceptable for us, and it's just not good enough for this to fit in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change all that for you, and that just has devastating consequences. So it's difficult because if school staff were going out there looking and getting the right advice all of the time, well, this would be changing much faster. Yeah, and so
I always think that, and I often say it, if I'm running a course for SNAs or school training, I'm like, while I'm in this room or I'm here with you telling you what not to do and what we should be doing in 2022, can you imagine how many courses are going on in Ireland alone, even at the same time, where positive behavior support, rewards and punishments, reward charts, all that, nonsense is being promoted as a way to deal with traumatized children, because I suppose that's what people don't understand. Being autistic doesn't cause people to hit, bite, kick, throw tables around the place. How would it? You know, we know that's what a traumatized human being looks like. And you have people who are not trauma informed. And even if they are, they don't apply their trauma informed approaches to the autistic child, because the autistic child is othered. So whatever they do is different and caused by, you know, autism. And like the big problem is the lack of autistic influence in any of those courses, is in the resources that schools are using. You know, it's really not autistic. It's not our place as autistics to go around educating people how to not abuse us and not traumatize us. Unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at. You know, and I suppose that's why the conference is so important. And I know you're going to go into more detail on, you know, I suppose why those practices are harmful, what we can do instead at the conference. What would you say to, like, maybe someone, schools listening, you know, or often even parents saying, well, they don't do that in my child's school. They're all very nice. Mm-hmm. They're all very nice there. They're very understanding.
And I mean, it can be quite subtle. It's not very obvious all the time. I mean, it's much more obvious to me now, because I found out as autistic a year and a half ago. I was a teacher for 25 years before that. You know, I am putting my hand up as an autistic person, saying a lot of the things that I did, I thought was the right way of doing it. And I thought, well, I mean, to admit this, but it's true. You know, things like here's an autistic child in school, and you hear the words struggling and difficulties and can't do and doesn't know how to and needs to learn and stuff. So it's there all the time as a teacher. And so I fell into the trap of thinking, well, I can help this child make friends, and I can help this child with their social skills, and I can help this child communicate better, and so I didn't know, and I was the autistic person, albeit I didn't know, but and so we might look like we're doing the right thing, and a lot of what is happening is really external versus internal, intrinsic versus extrinsic, and what we see versus what's going on inside. And so quite often in schools we base everything a lot on what we see. And we make assumptions and we make judgments and come up with theories about what is happening and what needs to be done about that. And so a lot of what has happened is that assumption and theory that, well, the autistic person needs to be taught social skills. So I can teach this child social skills. And we pat ourselves on the back and tick our boxes and say, it's great, because I taught that child, that autistic child who couldn't do these things, how to make a friend on the yard, how to be on the yard, how to go up to a group and say, hey, can I play? But what I didn't realize at the time is I don't know whether that child wanted that or not. I didn't know at the time whether that child needed that it was anything to do with who that child was internally and what was going on. And that's just, it's awful saying it out loud, really, isn't it? And so it might look, you know, okay.
I think it's important to say it out loud. And, you know, we're having this conversation tonight. I'm talking to Katie Curley, who's another presenter on Thursday night. Katie, you know, as an OT, took the same journey, Siobhan. We all do. We all think we know. We're all, you know, we have an idea. And then, you know, I suppose I found out I was autistic and I started learning about this stuff.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, that social, you know, that, oh yeah, we lack social skills. And you said something really important, you know, that people feel they're helping the child. And I think that's what makes it so difficult then for schools, teachers, SNAs, whoever, to hear that they're not helping the child.
Yeah.
Because there's love, kindness, effort gone into helping the child, and nobody wants to hear that that wasn't helping the child, that actually it was doing the very opposite, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is difficult. But unless we get to that point, then we're not going to change. And anybody who's here tonight and anybody who's thinking about coming on Sunday, there's a very good chance that they've already started asking those questions. And then as soon as we start asking those questions and hopefully finding the right answers on this, and we realize, okay, we have to change. We might have to admit then that what we were doing before wasn't helpful for these children and worse. But it's not going to change unless we start looking at that and saying, okay, that was wrong. We got that wrong. Let's move on. How can we do this? How can we make this okay? How can we get to a point where being autistic in schools, being an autistic child in school is okay, is normal? It's their normal, and we'll talk about that on Sunday, but it is okay. It's not one way or no way. And we're getting there, and things like this hopefully will help, and maybe just start the thinking process of we keep saying it's not about making these autistic children neurotypical. It's not about that. That is the way that's going to help them and work for them, because it's not. Because inside is saying something very different. The inside of what's happening with these children is very different to what we assume is happening when we look outside. And a huge danger here is that we look at behavior and we only deal with the behavior, and we're maybe not exactly happy with what behavior we've seen. We put all different words: unacceptable and defiant and
inappropriate,
all of these behaviors. And you know what, in a sense, and then a lot of times it's easy enough to change those behaviors or stamp those behaviors out or stop the behavior. If you frighten a kid enough or, reward and punish them enough, they will stop the behavior. Right. But then we're just stopping their alarm bells ringing, or what they're feeling inside and their expression and their ability to express. We're just stopping all that. So we're not getting any further with what's going on. So, I suppose we'll be looking at different ways within the schools that we can make it okay for autistic people to be autistic and live their life in school autistic, and move on from that and learn to. It's very exciting. It's very exciting for me, watching the changes and slow changes and faster changing that happens when we start to. And I'm still on the beginning of my journey. I'm still doing courses. I'm still learning, and every week learning more. But to be starting to have that confidence to put certain things in place within the systems that make all the difference for these children and make it okay and easier for them and make them want to come. It's a win-win.
Absolutely. And I suppose, there's a couple of things. I suppose it's like you will never find out what an autistic person is experiencing unless you ask that autistic person, which includes asking the kids in the school and looking at behaviors, communication. It also includes listening to autistic adults who've been through the school system, who know what effects these have, what mental health issues, let's call them, that go along with all of this, the trauma, the anxiety, the stress, how you feel about yourself, so the emotional responses to being mistreated in a system that doesn't respect you as an individual, see you as fully human like the other children, but people do need to listen to the realities, because that is our reality as the autistic community. Children are being traumatized in our schools. Mm-hmm. And, I find that, within, minutes of talking to somebody, they're like, well, we know this, this, and this, and we have our sensory room. And I'm like, no, nothing. If you're thinking the sensory room is the solution to that's something autistic kids need. We don't need a sensory room. We need to be included, respected, treated properly. And then you have all these people investing, in these kind of sensory rooms and whatever. When really those changes you're talking about, Siobhan, are mindset changes. Mm-hmm. And putting those attitude changes, into action. They don't cost anything except time, That's it. And autistic children are worth that time and absolutely deserve that time, and people working with children have a duty of care to those children, mm-hmm. So we can kind of say, sure, look, there's lots of bad training out there. Sure, look, the information's hard to come by, but it's not. It's, you know, you found out you're autistic. Here you are, you know, you're educating yourself every week. I did the same. So many of us do. We find the information, we find where to go. If it's there for us, it's there for everybody else, you know. And it is important that people realize, you know, I suppose, what ABA is, the damage it does, that it's not, you know, because people, I don't use ABA, and I know you'll talk more about like kind of in detail what it is on Sunday, but you know, that positive behavior support, why that's bad, why it's not trauma informed, why we shouldn't be using that in children. And on Sunday, you know, I mean, we have like an amazing lineup of speakers who are going to cover so many different things. We have obviously yourself, we're going to talk about better ways to treat autistic children in our schools and the current problems we have, but you know, also offer people some solutions to this, how we can get there. Christy Forbes is joining us from Australia. JJ Mudridge is you know, a survivor of ABA. And I suppose that's the thing for those of us who were diagnosed or found out we were autistic as adults, we didn't have ABA, you know, but so it's important that I suppose we listen to the people who went through it as well, that first-hand experience. And, you know, Gillian Kearns, who's going to talk about like, you know, what the radical behaviorism and where it came from. And, you know, where that everything we're doing right now today is based on those really archaic ideas, you know, before neuroscience, before we knew what we were, you know, how human beings actually worked. And, you know, Christy Forbes is going to talk about reimagining autistic family culture through the lens of radical acceptance, because that's what's needed. And Katie Curley, who I said is going to join us live on Thursday evening for a chat as well, you know, is an OT, multiply neurodivergent herself, and going to talk about, you know, supporting neurodivergent people to be their most authentic selves. And like when we say that, sometimes it's alien language. Like literally when we talk about being autistic, people don't even understand what it means, you know. We're literally starting there.
And that's the starting point, really, isn't it? Because how can we even be talking about allowing children be themselves unless we as their educators and the people that are spending 5 and 5.5 hours a day with them understand, or begin to understand, or look to understand what that's like and what's that like for those children. And I think, you know, if we can get to that point, well, then that's going to make it an awful lot easier for everybody in the classrooms. You know,
absolutely. And like, you know, non-speaking children as well, because there's this idea that non-speaking children can't hear what people are saying to them, don't understand, they get this diluted education and all this kind of stuff. And like Cole Sorensen is an AAC user who's joining us for the conference, you know, and talking about that, supporting non-speaking autistic people through a framework of self-determination, you know, because we don't need our community divided into speakers and non-speakers. You know, we need to talk about us as a collective.
And that's the aim within the school, isn't it? And so yes, people need accommodations. Yes, people need support in certain areas. All children need that. And so that whole idea of we can all do this together, and it's, you know, I suppose it's about that whole idea of learning and understanding about neurodiversity. And we're talking about, today and Sunday we're talking mainly about autistic children. We're talking about all neurodivergent children and ways that we can make our classroom a neurodiversity affirming place, using practices, neurodiversity affirming practices and approaches, as opposed to our neurotypical way of doing things and wanting our goals and achievements, and this is the ideal way to be. And we can all do this together. We can all be in the same room. We can all, you know, and so that whole idea of, okay, yes, accommodations, but the vast majority of what we need to do here is we all do together. And we all learn together, and it's about everybody being different, accepting differences, looking at the differences, understanding differences, and talking about them, and actually learning what that is and what that looks like and feels like. And a huge amount of what I feel needs to happen, and we talk obviously more about this on Sundays, all children, where we give them opportunity to really look inside and feel and notice and start and really learn about themselves and what's going on, and given the freedom to explore that within the classroom setting and the school setting, without fear of judgment, without fear of any shame or that's right, wrong, neither here nor there. But you are who you are, and we can explore all of that together, regardless of neurotype. But I suppose just at the minute it is more needed for our neurodivergent children, and it's exciting, and it's when you start to see that happening, because I'm starting to see the difference, because I was that other teacher a year and a half ago, and it absolutely amazing. And as you mentioned it before, a lot of the changes that we need to make, they're not big changes. They're not going to cost big money. We don't need to bring in huge big sensory rooms and all different things. We can do all of this. A lot of it we can start the very next day, and that's exciting. And so, when you have people willing to come and listen and say that's where I want to be, that's exciting. That's great news. That means change is happening. And maybe sometimes we want it to happen faster than it does, but anybody who's willing to sign up to this kind of thing is looking and looking for answers, and that's really great, and that's great for our children. And makes me hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. We have to keep hope, and I know it is. It's a roller coaster for all of us, because it is difficult, to see what's going wrong, and to know and have the answers, and to see what it could be, and literally be looking at this, and going, but we could just do these things, and we'd literally solve it. But the gap in between is people's unconscious bias. All of that kind of stuff. People being totally misinformed and thinking they are helping when they're actually damaging. If children, it's quite straightforward. If children are becoming distressed in your care and having meltdowns in your care, that child is not being treated properly. But we've got to a point where meltdowns, challenging behavior, that's the autism. It's very easy to say autism causes that. I mean, you can't actually no one can show how that happens, because obviously it doesn't. Being autistic doesn't cause somebody to be traumatized. That's what the environment does. And we've kind of come to a point in schools, I think in particular, where it's kind of accepted. Kids having multiple meltdowns a day, children needing breaks. It's like, why would you need a break if everything around you was set up for you? And you talked about accommodations and support, and the problem is other people get accommodations and support, and autistic needs just are left unaddressed. And if the sun's shining, people put on sunglasses. If it's a cold day, we make accommodations for ourselves. We put on a coat. There are tons of little things that we do for ourselves and other people do around us, and we do for each other. We don't call them accommodations and support, because it's just kind of accepted that that's what you do for fellow human beings. The problem is it's not being done for autistic children, and then it's this big deal about accommodations and support, that these children need accommodations and support. As you said, we all do. Everybody needs accommodation and support. We all rely on each other for all of those things. Autistic kids are no different. It's just that their needs were literally left out in the cold, and they're not looked after. And it is a horrible truth, to say autistic children are being abused in our schools. They're being mistreated. Their behaviors are being caused, and then they're being punished. Do you know what I mean? And it's just so, so wrong. And, you know, over the past few weeks, I suppose I've been doing a lot of training with schools and people working in schools. And, you know, it's that kind of idea that the child is clearly distressed, you know, is acting out more and more. And then you have people who, I don't know where they got their information from. They're like, oh, autistics don't like change. Maybe it's the new desk he got. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the new teacher. Like, it possibly is the new teacher. Not because she's new, you know, because she doesn't know, you know, the effect that ignorance has on that child in the classroom. Do you know what I mean? Like, literally, and I don't mind calling things what they are, because, you know, I'm kind of done excusing this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's a child there distressed in front of you. You know what I mean? They weren't like that the day they came in. Something is distressing that child. And to kind of be there going, maybe it's the new desk. Maybe it's the color of the hallway. Like, come on. Just like, you know, it's time for people to kind of put on, you know, their grown-up hats, really, and start thinking and, you know, take responsibility, because it isn't okay that children are being, it isn't okay, you know, and like, particularly in Ireland, I just think we've had such scandals, you know, with the way children have been treated in the past in our country by churches and all that kind of stuff. You know, we should be out in front fixing this. You know, we really should. We should be really concerned that this is happening, and not just autistic people and parents of autistic kids or whoever. Everybody should be highly concerned about this, but they're not, because I suppose stories don't really get into the news. No one talks about it. You know what I mean? It's just, we're not represented, and you know, the result of that is children suffering, you know, which nobody wants to talk about, I suppose, or admit to, and it's not pleasant. But sweeping it under the carpet is going to do nothing, only pass it on to the next generation and the generation after that, you know. Yeah, I suppose, is there anything else, Siobhan, you want to add before I kind of took over there?
No, take over you. I mean, the thing about it is, you know, I have my own personal experience of school and how difficult it was. And, you know, maybe we'll talk about this more Sunday, but we tend to look at the bad behaviors and the challenging behaviors, the disruptive behaviors, and, you know, they're the autistic kids and whatever. However, there is another side of it, is the whole quiet children and the masking children. And I was one of those kids. And, you know, suffering is still going on daily for the quiet autistic children in the schools. But, you know, I have that experience, and then my own experience in my own school. But, you know, you hear from an awful lot more schools of what's going on. And, you know, I hear stories too. And without doubt, this needs to change. And we can change this much sooner than we think. But the bottom line is that we have to, I really believe this strongly, you say it all the time, we have to listen to the autistic voice. And, you know, they're autistic adults and autistic teachers, everybody, all the lovely guests you have lined up, and the autistic children, because we have a tendency, and I think it's a big part of all this, I think we tend to dismiss you know, ability and how competent children are, and when it comes to the autistic child and the behavior, you know, these are smart kids that, you know, they have a very good idea that they're suffering. They may not be able to use the exact words that we want to hear, but what kid can say, actually say, this is what's happening to me, I'm suffering, this is difficult. So what we see is the kid who goes very, very quiet, or the kid who acts out and behaves in a certain way. And so you know, there are people talking, there are autistic people, adult children, who are willing to start telling us and inform us and let us know where we're going wrong and how we can make this better and easier. So I think it's really time that we listened, and we listened in our schools, and we have so many autistic children in our schools, and we ask them and we chat to them and we say, and we give them, you know, the platform and just that sense of belonging with it within the school, and say, okay, we are hearing from not just here, but every school and all over the country, and actually all over the world, that this isn't working for you guys. What do you think? How do you think we can improve this? And kids are absolutely amazing, and they will absolutely enlighten us and tell us. And we have to build up that. Look, I mean, so want to go into Sunday already, but building up that to a place where we can get there.
It's so lovely to hear you say, ask the kids. Because like I say that all the time, people are looking at me like I have 50 heads. And I'm like, ask children. Children are brilliant. They'll come up with
amazing
solutions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're thinking all the time, I can do this and how this works. That's literally what they're doing. Ask the child. And, sometimes I say that and they're like, Mom, the child doesn't speak. You can still ask them. They can respond. And I suppose it's that as well, that children don't have access to AAC, because a lot of the time that is the issue, and they're expressing and communicating, and everyone around them is going, oh, maybe it's the new desk, maybe because they got a new pair of shoes. Do you know what I mean? And I'm going, if that child actually had access to a robust communication system, that child would be able to tell you in a way that you understand, because obviously every other way they're using, you're not understanding. But look, I think you said something very important earlier, and it's like people coming to the conference, being willing to sign up, being willing to listen. And, we could be here talking all night, Siobhan, but I mean, it doesn't make a difference until people actually, listen and start attending autistic events and listening to autistic people, because that's, we're just talking into a void otherwise. So people who are willing to listen, willing just to look inside and go, I got stuff wrong. You said it, I say it, Katie's going to say it on Thursday. Yeah. When we know better, we do better. Yeah. But we have to start knowing better first. That's the first. Yeah. That's the first.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't, because I mean, I say this often, and I think it's a vast majority of teachers and staff in schools are well intentioned. I think, they're there for all the right reasons. And so it is, and you said it, and if parents and teachers and chatting about, but the school is doing well. But if we look a little bit closer and we look a little bit deeper, there's room for massive improvements there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we will, I suppose that's what we'll be talking about on Sunday. Those massive improvements, in all different areas for autistic people. And like, autistic kids spend a lot of time in school when they can cope with it. And schools, really do need to start changing and changing fast. So Siobhan, thank you so much. I always love chatting to you. To everybody listening, thank you for listening. First step.
Absolutely. First big step.
Share the video, comment below, let us know, what you think. Tag your friends, tag your people. If you're in a school and you're watching this, make it a school event. Let parents know about this, that this is happening, because it is so important. If you can't make it live on Sunday, there's a recorded option as well. So, you can catch up in your own time. I'll put the booking details below. But, it's difficult for autistic people to organize these events, because we're literally teaching people not to traumatize us. It's difficult for us to show up on the day and talk about these things, So we're all doing this very hard work. And I suppose we just need other people now to start meeting us and start doing some hard work as well. So Siobhan, thank you so much. And I am so looking forward to our chat on Sunday and all the other fantastic speakers we have as well. Thanks again. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you Sunday. Cheers.
Thanks, Evelyn. Talk to you.
Bye.